Our first learning target for Rome says, I will be able to tell the founding of Rome both in legend and fact. We had the opportunity to experience Aeneas's story from Virgil's writing of the Aeneid as we searched for our new seats in class, just as Aeneas had to leave his homeland of Troy after the Trojan War. He experienced many adventures and hardships on his quest to find his new home, where he landed on the banks of the Tiber River and eventually joined the Latins there. Another famous story is of Romulus and Remus, and in fact, it's probably a more recognized story than the Aeneas one. And this story is of Romulus and Remus. Here we go. Empires rise and empires fall. The gods, who can see these things and know the future, gradually shifted from the ground of Greece to the skies over Italy. They became known by different names, not Zeus, but Jupiter, and not Hera, but Juno, and not winged Hermes, but winged Mercury. Around the shrine to Vesta, a great temple was built. Its Vestal priestesses, the unmarried daughters of good families, were there. Because all their love was promised to the goddess Vesta, they were forbidden on the pain of death to give any love to a mortal man. Rhea Silvia did not. Mortal men she could easily have resisted. But the god Mars, god of agriculture and war, quarrelsome Mars, warrior wild and handsome as only an immortal can be, wooed Rhea Silvia like a war besieging a town. He blasted her with love, bombarded her with tender words, shot her full of passion. She could no more resist him than the flowers on the altar could resist the flames that ate them. Finding she was pregnant, she tried to hide her secret, but soon her slim figure grew round as a sail, and the other priestesses whispered behind their hands, what is to be done? Rhea Silvia has broken her vows. Rhea Silvia is giving birth to twins. Rhea Silvia must die. Her mother and father were important citizens. They were descendants of Aeneas himself. They might have pleaded for the life of their daughter or spirited her away to safety, but instead, they upended their hearts and they emptied out every last drop of love they had ever felt for her. Bury her alive as the law demands, they said. Rhea Silvia must die. But the babies, the twin baby boys, what will become of them? Throw them in the Tiber River. It's a pity they were ever born. So brick by brick, Rhea Silvia was sealed up in her tomb, those last bricks shutting out the sounds and the sunlight of the living world. Mars could have shattered her prison with a single breath, but he had long since left Latium to batter some other lady's heart or raise up war in the world. As for those twin baby boys, Romulus and Remus, they were carried naked in a basket to the banks of the Tiber. The servant sent to carry out the task would have tipped them in midstream, but the Tiber was in flood, and the waters milled by with such terrifying force that they set the basket down on the muddy shore, and they watched till the swollen river swirled the children away toward a watery death. Ah, but weren't Romulus and Remus the sons of Mars, the descendants of Aeneas? Though their pink tiny fists and feet were powerless to save them, they were strong, healthy boys. The cold didn't kill them, the river did not spill them, nor the pike snatch them down to a muddy death. The basket was swept helter-skelter downstream, until it snagged on the tree roots and spun into a backwater where the wild creatures came to drink. A face loomed over the baby boys, a mask with yellow eyes and mouth full of ravenous teeth. The wolf opened her wide, grinning jaws and seized first on Romulus and then on Remus and ran with them to her lair. And there she dropped them among the soft tumbling fur of her hungry cubs. And there she fed them, letting them drink as her cubs drank from her soft, warm underbelly. A woodpecker perched on a branch nearby to watch for danger. And if that seems strange to you beyond belief, you should know that the woodpecker and the wolf are creatures that are sacred to Mars. A shepherd found them out one day hunting the wolves who had threatened his livestock. Now, when he found these two big squalling baby boys, pink and brawling in the wolf den, he took them home. He was no fool. He knew full well who they were. He knew that the law demanded their death, but he and his wife had no children of their own, and neither civic duty nor fear of punishment counted for anything alongside the joy those children brought them. Perhaps Romulus and Remus drank down the ferocious courage of the she-wolf as they drank her milk. Perhaps they learned courage and endurance from her as she came and went, feeding and fighting for her young. Or perhaps as sons of Mars, the god of war, there was already warrior blood in their veins. Whatever, Romulus and Remus grew up into brave, quarrelsome boys who never shunned a fight and who never lost one either. No shepherd life for them, no peaceful life in Latium. Even before their father told them the story of their birth, they were roaring boys with roaring friends, their sights pinned on glory. They set their hearts on building a new city, a grand city, a city to rival Troy or Carthage or Athens. It shall be called Rheims, said Remus. Rome, you mean, Romulus corrected him. They quarreled about it. Naturally, it was their way to squabble and row. Brothers do. It was my idea, Romulus repeated, growing red himself. I shall be king of this new city, and it will be called Rome after me, not Rheims. Rome. Rheims. There seemed to be no way to resolve the argument, for being twins, neither was older than the other, which might have decided the matter. They squabbled and rowed, and brothers do. The gods looked on with mild amusement. Let the gods decide, said Romulus. So in the end, they decided to let the gods sort it out with an omen. Romulus climbed to the top of the Palatine Hill, while Remus climbed to the nearby Aventine. Yes, we'll watch for a sign, agreed Remus. And the gods too nodded in agreement, and Jupiter sent a flock of ravens to mark the spot fixed by destiny for the building of their sacred city. There, there, look, 3 ravens, cried Remus, the sacred birds of Jupiter. An acorn dropped from the claw of one bird and fell to earth. The brothers, however, were too busy arguing to notice where it fell. Almost at once, the clouds folded back, and 6 great vultures flew down to the Aventine and began to circle around Remus. There, shouted Remus triumphantly, the city will be called Rheims, and I will be the king. The gods have decided it. No, Romulus shouted back, the gods are on my side. The city will be called Rome, and I will rule. 7. There were 7, not 3, said Romulus. And what does it matter anyway? I saw them first, said Remus. So I will decide where Rheims is to be built. But I saw more ravens than you, protested Romulus. So I will build in my chosen place. You can do as you like. It will be Rome, not Rheims. They exchanged a string of insults. Brothers do. The gods frowned a little at their squabbling. Time was going to waste. Obstinate, Romulus began to build. Where the Tiber River snaked between the 7 hills, and the sunbeams were blade sharp and golden, and where the stones were mossy massive, heaping the boulders into a wall on the Palatine Hill. You call that a wall? Jeered Remus. I've seen bigger pigsties. And he jumped over the low walling, his feet dislodging pebbles, his taunts loud and sneering. To and fro he jumped, deriding Romulus's work until all brotherly affection dissolved in Romulus, and he hated his brother with a hot loathing. Brothers can. He picked up a boulder. You do that once more. And Remus jumped the wall. A whole section slumped down in a landslide of rocks and pebbles. Romulus lifted the boulder and brought it down on his brother's head. Remus was dead before he even hit the ground. Thus die all those who ever try to leap the walls of Rome, Romulus crowed as his young warrior friends ran to the spot and crowded around him. And then Romulus wept because he had killed his best friend in the world, and all for the sake of a pile of stones. The gods then looked on with distaste. How could the destiny of an empire rest on the shoulders of such men? No, it is good, said Mars, dry-eyed and stony-faced. It is good that blood should water the foundations of Rome. But Jupiter shook his head. They were fools to quarrel. In this way was the city founded, in blood, and perhaps for that reason did so much blood flow through its streets during its turbulent history. Ah, but that is not the matter of myth or legend. That is a matter of history.